Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to talk about my relationship with God because I got a couple of those questions. And I was raised Christian. I was raised to believe in the Christian God. Of course, they got a couple of things wrong. But I was raised under the Christian faith. I know the Bible very well. Um, Maybe I can just recite a couple of verses. I won't because that'd be rude. Um, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to lose your religion because I definitely lost mine altogether. But again, it was not an overnight thing, it was a gradual realization. And the start of that journey away from the Christian faith for me started when I discovered human rights. And I, of course, growing up in a cult, they don't teach you about human rights. And I discovered human rights when I was about 28 years old, 28, 29, somewhere around there. I discovered that human rights were a thing. And up until that point, after I left the cult, I was still Christian because I left the cult at 23 and I maintained Christianity just out of fear for my life. It was what I knew. It was what I knew to ask for protection. It was how I knew to appease for my sins, whatever they were. So I wanted to keep the structure because it was familiar. And when you go through such a big break like that, you want to keep the things that are familiar. And I thought, all right, well, let me keep this piece. Let me keep the Christian God. And I did try to go to church a couple of times. But there was just, I think once you see or once you recognize what narcissism and just ego is, when you understand what it looks like when ego uses God as its power, I think it's hard to unsee. And I think in the church, I continued to see um, the use of God for personal gain, which I didn't enjoy, and also in discovering human rights. I, of course, began to believe, like, oh my God, like, yes, human rights are a thing. They should be available to every single human being. And what I realized is that that started to clash with my Christian faith because Christianity is incredibly strict and it allows you to debase and degrade and humiliate other human beings if they do not believe in the way that you do. And I think that is very obvious where you see Christians who profess to love everyone but will vote against gay rights, or profess to value all human life. But will not fight for you if you do not believe in the same things that they do. So, women are also, of course, not valued. I think that's very clear in the Christian faith. So, women are dehumanized, gay people are dehumanized. Christianity is also used to spread racism, and it's just, I think that choosing Christianity on some level can be choosing ignorance instead of development because you're choosing the things that are familiar to you instead of asking the hard questions of, does this sort of set of thinking like value all human life, and if not, why do I believe this? And again, that is just me. That has nothing to do with you. I don't know who you are watching this, so if it bothers you, great, ask questions about it, because I think asking questions about it, whatever it is, asking questions will get you closer to clarity, and clarity is the thing that you need in your life in order to move forward boldly. I no longer believe in the Christian God. That disappeared when I began discovering human rights. I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in spirituality. I believe there is something out there, and I do feel upheld by it. But that also took a while because there's just a moment where you start to lose, I started to lose my faith in God. And as I did that, there was nothing to replace it because it was too new in my losing of my religion for me to pick up another strain of spirituality. So there was just this moment in time where you were completely lost and you realize no one is looking out for you. And that, I think, is the most alone that I've ever felt in my life, because it was also the time that my marriage was falling apart. So I realized that I was completely alone in the world. I no longer had my husband. I no longer had the structure that I grew up with, and I no longer had a God. And that was a very, very devastating realization. My whole mental structure, not just because of the cult, but my whole mental structure because of Christianity, had to be redone. And so there were a couple of devastating moments that kind of came all in succession as I was losing my religion. But the nice thing about it is that there is not just one cup to drink from. And what I mean by that is there's this really beautiful analogy about spirituality where it talks about spirituality as a stream, and there are people alongside the stream dipping in and sipping from this stream of spirituality. And the story or the line goes that people fight over which cup to use as opposed to just drinking from the stream. So where I am now is that I drink from the stream and I use my own two hands. I don't use a cup. But I do think that you should do the things that bring you peace. And I know some people who are not necessarily professing Christians, they don't go to church, but they have a personal relationship with God, and they drink from the cup of Christ being God. And if that brings you peace and that allows you compassion, then I encourage you to drink from it. Again, I think people deserve peace. I think peace of mind is a human right. And if love for God brings you that, great. Where I draw the line is where people start using Christianity or God or a higher power, whatever it is, to degrade other human beings and tell other human lives that they are less valuable because they do not believe the same things as they do. And that's where I am now, where I have a relationship with spirituality. I do believe in a higher power. But I also believe that everybody's spirituality is their own business. And so if you are drinking from a Christian cup, good for you. I am not. But everybody has the responsibility to get in touch with a higher power on their own volition. And I think it comes at different times in people's life. And I think that that should be allowed. I think there's this idea that you have to find it as a child and then you have to stick to it, and it's that one. And I just don't ascribe to that. I think that people can find it many times over, and it should evolve and change as human beings and nature. If you just look around, everything evolves and change and needs different things in order to survive different phases of its life. And I think that it's the same with spirituality. So it is an ongoing process, and it is one that I am thankful to have been introduced to so many different facets of it, and I'm thankful to have seen it. And this is the choice that I'm making now. And that's my story.